Hello. Hello, everybody. How are you? Good. Good. Attention, attention. Customers, there you go. I'm here. Hi. Hi. I'm JB. Nice to meet you guys. So today we have a great team of speakers that come from far, far, far away. So I'm going to give them a few seconds to introduce themselves, starting with Anan.
So, hello everyone. Anan Abbasi, Senior Manager at PwC in Paris, and I'm working on strategy, cyber strategy field. So with Jean-Bernard.
Michael?
Michael, so I'm from Airbus, and I'm the head of cyber risks and vulnerabilities for the group Airbus.
Paul?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Paul Demajon. I'm in charge of cybersecurity solutions for Microsoft France.
And Philippe?
Hello, I'm Philippe Correr. I'm Managed Cyber Risk Lead for PwC UK and globally driving the topic as well on Managed Cyber Risk.
And I'm JB, I'm PwC France, so I do cybersecurity and focus on MCR, which is managed cyber risk. So today we're here to talk about basically what do the board want to consume in terms of cybersecurity, what do they need? So I'm going to ask the audience here, starting with Anan, basically, what do you see the problem being in terms of cybersecurity reporting for the board today?
So as you know, so information risk is become the high priority for the board. And information risk basically is the cyber risk, the third-party risk, where we have a cyber area as well, the IT risk, and also the data risk. And why it's become the high priority for the board? Because the board, by design, need the digital to transform the business. And to transform the business, we need to secure the business, secure the technology behind. And so we need to understand the risk. That's why the board first is become more aware about the cyber risk. And the second one is the regulation are defining more accountability for the board regarding decision that must be made to ensure that we secure the technology and we manage the risk correctly, and to ensure to have the right investment in the cyber risk framework that enable the company to secure the business.
So if I want to recap that, basically the boards need context, right? The board is context, business context, regulatory context. They need to really speak the language, not just the cyber tech, not the data, operational cyber risk, but they need context, business risk, regulatory risk. That's very important to translate that, to speak that language for the board. So 2 points. What else do you see in the marketplace? Michael?
Yes, from executive point of view or board point of view, you may have some people who are skilled in cyber, who are technically skilled. However, you may have some that are not. And what is important for them is to understand what the business risk, so what is at stake, where can you be fined because of a lack of compliance, and moreover, usually when you go to see a board and you show them some risks, what they want to understand is what can they do to remediate the risk and how can they help you to mitigate the risk. And it's where, in fact, you need to be able to make them understand what are the functions that will be part of the risk remediation, what do you need their support, and how will they bring support to you.
So very good point. So you have to have meaning, right? So if you tell the board, you send a message to the board, it needs to have meaning. Meaning not just for the board, for the people that are going to do something about it, right? So when you present something to the board, make sure that the person that's actually going to take the action understand his role into the resolution of the item presented to the board. So you have to do your homework beforehand, orchestrate that logic so that meaning is delivered to the board from the bottom all the way to leadership. If the chain of value is broken and you make an assumption and you deliver a message that's not enabling, that's not understood by the bottom, you're delivering the wrong message. It's easy. It's simple. No. It's not easy, it's not simple. So you have to have meaning, and you have to construct that meaning in your message to make sure that you have an impact to the board, because the board say, do that. Yes, sir. But then you have to execute the yes, sir, and you need to make sure there's meaning behind the message that you're delivering to the board. That's very important. Good point. Paul?
Yes, Jean-Bernard, so thank you. Something I would like to say, when you meet executives now, compared to 4 or 5 years ago, they see what's happening in the press. So it means that in addition to the right metrics, IT and business metrics, they need to understand, based on the latest news, are they impacted? Yes or not? Are they protected? Yes or not? And based on what happened, should they revise their level of risk exposure? So for me, the big difference is the kind of the real-time need, and a tool or a service that you do a pen test, for example, once a year in January. It's not enough to be protected and resilient in July, in September, and December. So this real-time thing, that's something they ask based on the news. And the second thing is I discuss about IT and business. There's lots of metrics out there, lots of tooling, lots of dashboard. But we need to ensure that we translate those dashboards into, like you said, something they can understand. Because it can be very technical, it can be super complex. They don't have the background. They have to understand what kind of decision they're going to make based on what you provide to them.
So two points that were made. The first one is transparency, right? You have to have real-time transparency to external context, an event in the press, with what you're producing today. Yesterday's news is today's impact, right? So you have to have real-time dashboarding capability to your executive, because if you have a threat, you know, a 0 day that's in the news, your C-level is going to ask you right away, what do we do about that, right? And you need to be able to answer. So that's very important to have real-time transparency. The board need to have constructed answer, precise answer. The other point that was made is more about basically awareness, right? Simplicity in terms of awareness. So you have to simplify, you have to be precise in terms of, you know, communicating to the board to make sure the board understands, is able to make good decision. So the complexity, you need to translate into simplicity, because you understand the details and you govern, you understand the business. So cybersecurity personnel like me, right? We need to take sometimes our hat off in terms of the technology, put a business hat on, right? And speak English or French or whatever else, but in simple terms to be understood. And it's important to navigate this communication channel between technology speak to our staff and political simplicity speak for the board. Board are very, very smart. But if you get your topic, you need to be able to articulate in simple words, because you understand it well, right? That's important. Philippe?
I guess new point as well, on top of the requirement for more data-driven, objective data to sustain your answer questions at the board level. I think one of the key questions that boards often ask as well is around, are we getting the right return on investment back from all these investments that we're making in cybersecurity? Are we prioritizing in the correct areas, right? You could be spending millions and millions, but actually you're just following a compliance method that is just driving you somewhere, right? To one direction because you think that's the right direction, but you're not following a risk-based approach that tells you these are the biggest risks, threats with data. And those are the actual priority areas, not that one, because you're not using a risk-based approach. So that shifting minds from compliance to risk is also some big work with a lot of companies.
So this one I will call it revenue grounded, right? Revenue ground. You need to speak a language that the board understands. Speak in euros, dollars, whatever currency you're trading into. Speak a language that they understand. If we spend 5 million, you will get this reduction in risk. If you spend 1 million, you will get not much reduction in risk. So you have to ground the conversation. They have hundreds, $200 million, business decision to make. And you have to bring it to a denominator that they understand. If you do this and this and this, is going to improve that. That's very important in terms of transformation, in terms of any kind of move to cloud, any kind of technology investment. Cybersecurity is part of the equation. We, on average, about 7 to 10% of the IT budget in cybersecurity, so it needs to be part of the conversation. So ground the conversation, speak to a denominator, speak dollars, speak euro, so that they understand you, okay? Because they have to make a decision in terms of the investment. So now that we have covered what is the most important, what are the problems today in the marketplace, the next part of the conversation is going to be about what do we see emerging in terms of the board, right? What is the things that are getting better at? Anan?
So basically the board, what you need to understand, are we inside the border that we set up? So the border is the risk appetite, and to do that we need to have more structured approach, so more enhanced integration with the overall risk management system. So we see this topic are emerging for the financial sector, basically because the regulation is requiring more integrated approach for the risk management, and to have more risk-based strategies, because we need to understand what are the costs that what will cost if I keep my situation in terms of risk, and what are the investments that I should put in place. And to do that, the board needs to understand what are the key strategies and why we are doing those strategies, and what are the key tactics that will enable optimize the cost but reduce the risk as well. And for the financial, for example, sector, we see more integrated approach for the risk management, more simplified reporting to the board, more data quantification of risk to be more consistent in the way how we report the risk to the board.
So what Anan is saying to us is that the board is getting better because we are giving the board more quantification, more reporting, access to real-time data, right? And we're giving them scenarios. You can do A, you can do B, those are the consequences. So we are enabling the board to have a better understanding of our subject. There's still room to grow, basically, but there's a little bit of progress in terms of the kind of information that we're presenting to the board. We give them options, not just, I did this. I'm sorry, but 10 years ago, the CISO was getting into a room, and I used to be one, right? And they say, I did this, I did this, I did this. Great, you've done 5 things. You spend my 5 million. What have you not done, right? What is it that's still boiling on the fire that's going to burn the house, right? So it's as important to say what you've done and what you have not done, but it's better to basically have a risk-based approach to say, this is the overall risk. This is how we're going to reduce the risk, and this is the action item we need to do. So the language has changed, and it's important to have this risk-based language to approach the board, to educate them to think that way. Wants to go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, if I may, I would say that we are much more lucky than 10 years ago because the board has gained in competencies. We have a lot of examples where you read the newspaper and every day you have a company that is down. So instead of having the CISO meeting the board once a year and speaking of 5 projects, they have the understanding of what is happening, and you will be called if something is popping on the internet to say, what is our situation with regard to this specific vulnerability? Are we a target? So it's much easier to first to have the board coming to us, and it's also much more easier to get access to the board, because if there is something unpredicted that is coming, we can have a conversation with the board within a day or 2, because we have some ExCom members, we have some board members that are exactly aware of what's the risk behind this new threat. So somehow we are lucky.
Yes. So this is a very good point. So they are boards, not all of them, but they are boards that are very skilled when it comes to cybersecurity and take the subject very seriously. They understand it. They are approachable. They want to have those conversations. They want to have this level of engagement. And this is a blessing, in terms of being able to do that. It's not true everywhere, but you can see the role of the CISO going up in the food chain. You can see the CISO taking more and more responsibility and becoming a trusted member, basically, of the executive committee and has a bigger role to play. You see that in the US quite a bit when the CISO is basically second line defense, is really connected. Sometimes he has a seat. The SEC is driving basically one board member to have this caliber of knowledge in terms of a cybersecurity from a SEC standpoint in the US. So you see that trend going in that direction to have this board-enabled cyber mindset represented in the board. That's an important trend.
Yeah, I think one key change is that the last 5 years, we spent our time to make companies more cyber resilient. Okay, we are not there yet everywhere, but we made huge progress. What executives would like to have now is future risk. So we are in VivaTech here. I'm not sure if you can find a booth without a generative AI demo that is already in production. So question from the executives we see even today is tell me the risk if I select this Gen AI model, if I create this application, if I use this service. Can I anticipate and understand what is the possible risk about my data, the risk about the model, the responsible AI concept? So those are the discussions. So trying to model on understand the future risk of technology adoption with the speed of Gen AI, that's a challenge. Because what was true 3 months ago is different today. Yep. It's going to be different in 3 months. So I would say it's the agile risk analysis that is the new norm for me, for the executives.
So this is predictive modeling, basically. So predictive modeling is anticipation of current state posture, right? Adoption of new technology, and then consequence, predictive modeling as to what is going to be at risk, how do we anticipate it, right? Is that supply chain? Is that data governance? Is that data leakage? Consuming other people's data that we have not, that didn't give us agreement for. What is basically the risk that we now need to address? And the reality is that from a cybersecurity standpoint, the questions are similar. The context is different, but the questions are similar. So we can use the same question and address them and get to a good answer in terms of predicting modeling. Philippe?
So what I see is there's all this demand to go more predictive, more, I guess, as well, new threat areas. But boards with the CISOs then realize that they haven't done the basics, I suppose, to clarify what does a cyber risk mean? What is a cyber risk? That's even if we go to that basic definition, back to that definition of is it phishing? Is it ransomware? Is it actually us not being in business, completely disrupted for months and months because we cannot operate any of our computers anymore and our whole supply chain is inactive, right? So helping clarify that data taxonomy and understanding what is a risk in the cyberspace. It's ever evolving, new threats popping up with a lot existing threats on other technologies, but some very, very novel that Gen AI brings in and other LLMs bring in as well. How do we actually position that in that wider taxonomy? Because without those basics, it's not possible to do data-driven risk measurement. It's not possible to be transparent. All of it falls apart. So it's kind of building that up.
So it's really important to ground the conversation in terms of what is the baseline, what do you speak about, what are risks for you, really important to baseline. The third part of this conversation, I'm going to move on a little bit, is what are the solutions available on the marketplace today in order to mitigate and address the board's need and the gaps that we have in the board. So in the last 5 minutes, we're going to try to listen to our speakers telling us about solutions that exist today.
So the most, I could say, the solution. So we have, for example, more data-driven approach for the risk measurement. So why we are using more data-driven approach? Because it's very important, as I said before, to be more quantification in the risk measurement. It gives the board more confidence in the way how we will understand if we are our exposition to the risk, cyber risk. And the second one is, so the company environment is changing, so the business is changing, the technology is changing, the threats are changing, and we need to have more adaptive strategies. And to be adaptive, it needs maybe some tactical, so like the toolings, like more agile organization in terms of having like simple organization, harmonize the process, operating models, etc. And also the use of like AI will help also the organization to better use this technology and to translate the data to other KPI, KRI that we will use to quantify the risk.
Okay. So we talk about data-driven approach. So data is everywhere, right? Now you have AI that's going to answer questions very quickly, right? You're going to help you understand the data very quickly. However, boards still need to have a very framed consumption of data, because if they have a prompt and they ask linear questions, you may get into trouble because they need to have context. So be careful in terms of data. But what's important is the point of velocity of change. And you don't want to have a static dashboard. You don't want to have a platform that doesn't allow you to consume more data, to ask more questions, and to be very adaptive in terms of what is the question of the day that needs to be answered by this data.
Yes, it's where you leave the ivory tower and you go down to the cave. You speak with the board about high-level risks, business risks, but you need to link them with your asset management to know exactly what is the asset, what is the vulnerability, what is my threat. And for this, you need data. And you need data, I would say, that is accurate, fresh, and complete. Because shit in, shit out. If you don't have the proper data, your mathematical model for computation will just fail. So it's at this point in time that, yeah, you get rid of your suite, you put your polo, and you go down and you look, okay, how can I get all the information from the SOC, from technical compliance, for regulatory compliance, from the asset management, from the business, and so on. And you collate everything to be able to factualize your business risk and to say you have a risk here because you have a lack of hygiene, for example, of your asset at this level.
Okay. Two things. I go back to my Gen AI topic. Executives made the decision to go for Gen AI for employees. That's the future of work. We can't ignore that. The complementary question is, how can I understand what is my risk exposure related to Gen AI? Which type of applications am I using within the company? So visibility is key, and we have some security controls for that. And the second thing is that the board, they don't want to see the board meeting report in the wild, okay, leaking the company. So they want to understand the possible risk of oversharing, for example. And we have some controls there to understand and to apply some encryption, some confidentiality labels to ensure we only have access to some data. And when we ask Gen AI, we keep the same level, the same perimeter of access, and we don't see what is elsewhere. Second thing is Gen AI for security, Gen AI for cyber. Yep. Gen AI is super good to do reporting. Yep. So we can imagine having a copilot, a Gen AI tool that can help as an assistant to create some report about an incident. We open a ticket, we had an attack here, we found an IOC, blah, blah, blah. It should be super complex. If we make it simple and we can share with executives about the situation, I think we can save some time and facilitate the understanding across the company. So that's two kind of immediate solutions available right now that can support executives.
Thank you, Paul. 1 minute.
Obviously, when you talk about tooling, I'm going to talk about my managed cyber risk product, but it's that orchestration layer that we do to quantify risk. We can plug into posture management tools, such as Microsoft Defender for Cloud and other types of posture management tools to translate what they say in terms of business risk. And the more you plug in to source data, the more accurate and objective your measurements will be, as it was said. Otherwise, your measurements remain subjective, right? It's moving that subject from subjective to more objective. And the point of AI is bringing more and more predictive analytics to tell you where to do your investments, where are your biggest gaps, and where you could further improve yourself to measure, to decrease the risk.
Thank you. And Philippe is doing a demo right here about the MCR if you want to hear more about it. But I'm going to turn the last few minutes to you and to address your questions from the audience. Question. Who wants a free? Come on. One question. I'm sure you have a good question. All right, so I have one question. So we've said a lot of things today. If you had to synthesize the 3 things that the audience need to walk away with, what are they? Paul.
I think the key thing for me is to understand the difference between a dashboard and the real-time evaluation of risk. In a company that is moving very fast with Gen AI, we can't rely only on dashboard and reporting. I think we have to rethink the way we inform executives about the situation at a particular point in time. So that's my summary.
Okay. Michael?
Well, you need to make the board understand that risk and threats are different. And in case of an emerging threat, the risk posture will be modified as they need to accommodate with the new risk posture immediately. It's no more a question of months, it's a question of hours.
That's right. Time. And then?
So for me, we need to provide the right awareness to the board, so to be able to understand the challenge and have the right means in terms of investment and people, because people is a very important part of the implementation of strategies, operation, etc. And the board must have an understanding of what is a cyber risk and the key concept of those high-level concept, not operational one, but to be able to understand what we are talking about.
Philippe? Finally, there's a 4th point, I suppose. You make whatever approach you use, make it transparent, like open it up, make it available to be configured, and so that the explainability of an approach is very, very important. Otherwise, you cannot back why you think the measurements are X, Y, or Z, if the risk is high or not.
So to synthesize for all of you, because there's a quiz at the end and you need to remember, I'm going to ask you questions at the end. So PowerPoint, slides, dashboard, not useful. Predictive analytics modeling, data, real-time data consumed technology that informs basically the KPI that will ultimately help make a decision on the risk posture of the organization is key to enable in order to have the right substance to be able to communicate to the board and take remediation action that have meaning to the board. Very important. So don't throw things at the board that you don't have substance for. Dangerous game, and honestly, in today's age, not a good idea. So please rethink about messaging to the board. They have limited time, very powerful individuals, right? They're going to make very critical decisions for cybersecurity. You need to be sharp and have the substance to be able to inform them in the AI world. Thank you very much, everybody.